Emperor Nero holds a special place in the Hall of History's most infamous figures. After all, he killed his half-brother and throne rival, as well as his 2 wives. He also had his mother murdered, and, after several failed attempts, his assassins managed to kill her. The emperor was also known for being a merciless oppressor of the early Christians, including Saints Peter and Paul. One infamous last scene, almost a meme, portrays the emperor playing the harp or lyre while Rome was burning. If true, all these accusations rank Nero as one of the worst Roman emperors. But some of these accounts may be nothing but fabrications. Emperor Nero was renowned for his insanity and tyranny, including the Great Fire of Rome, one of his most vile and notorious actions. Nevertheless, whilst it was a devastating event that destroyed a large part of the Roman Empire's capital, Nero was not to blame for the catastrophe. He did not give the order, and certainly did not play the harp or lyre while the flames were burning. But Nero made the most of the cataclysmic occurrence, and, in the aftermath of the Great Fire, undertook several lavish building projects, including the opulent palace complex known as the Domus Aurea, or Golden House. His construction spree on the ashes of the smoldering city infuriated political foes, including the Senate of Rome. In the wake of his suicide in 68, the senators capitalized on the Great Fire of Rome in their attempt to smear Emperor Nero's name for posterity. To some extent, they succeeded, but what was the Great Fire of Rome really like? As one of the most tragic episodes in the city's long history, it happened in the 10th year of Emperor Nero's reign. The fire started on the night of July 18, 64, in the 11th district, where the great chariot racing arena, the Circus Maximus, was located. According to one of the best sources available, the historian Tacitus, the first flames rose in the stores near the Great Ring, from where the fire spread swiftly, fueled by the strong wind and the dry summer climate. The Great Fire of Rome raged for 6 days and 7 nights, wiping out or damaging 10 of the 14 districts. The flames killed hundreds of people, left thousands homeless, and 2/3 of the city in ruins. Nero's enemies blamed the disaster on the emperor. Nero was put at fault for the fire, either for ordering it or for neglecting it. In other words, he acted negligently, showing indifference to the suffering of those affected by the tragedy. The most severe of the accusations was probably that the emperor was using the Great Fire of Rome for his artistic pursuits. As the ancient city burned, he watched from the safety of his palace, played his lyre, and sang of the destruction of Troy, drawing comparisons between the ongoing disaster and the ancient calamities. A tempting story, but, as always happens in history, too good to be true. For starters, according to Tacitus, Nero had a strong alibi. He was not in Rome when the fire broke out. At 26 of age, the emperor was relaxing at his seaside villa in Antium, 50 kilometers from Rome. Upon hearing the dreadful news, the emperor immediately returned to the capital, where he personally led the relief efforts. This is not something you would expect from an arsonist, unless he was also an excellent actor, attempting to divert everyone from his culpability. Besides leading the efforts to curb the inferno, the emperor also helped the victims. As Tacitus wrote, the emperor opened the Campus Martius and the public building as a shelter for those who had lost their homes, to the point of allowing them to use his private gardens. Once the blazing hell had finally stopped, Nero offered cash incentives to ensure Rome's rapid recovery. He also approved and enforced new fire regulations. The Great Fire of Rome was not the first time the ancient city had been engulfed in flames. There had been no less than 6 fires in the first half of the 1st century alone. But the 64 fire was by far the worst. Nero consequently played a crucial role in averting any similar disaster in the future. Meanwhile, Nero harnessed the fire to carry out a magnificent project that he had dreamed of for a long time, but had not carried out due to a lack of available space in Rome. He wanted to build his opulent Golden House. Notwithstanding the emperor's efforts, many blamed Rome's burning on Nero for being too suitable for his Golden House. This palace was built in the site ravaged by the fire, and was a magnificent and enormous palace complex with many buildings, landscaped gardens, orchards, vineyards, and even an artificial lake. The rooms were plated in gold and adorned with precious stones and gems. Not surprisingly, the senators jumped at the chance to bash their hated rival, exploiting the sumptuous structure. Yet the senators' anger may have been misplaced, since, according to recent findings, the huge complex seems not to have been a private building, but a public one, open to the people of Rome. In fact, Nero was quite popular with the ordinary citizens. To quell the rumors and deter any violence, Nero had to find a scapegoat for the crippling ordeal that had wrecked Rome. The answer was to accuse a new and unpopular religious sect, regarded as a threat by the Roman authorities, the Christians. Tacitus reported that, on the emperor's orders, they were arrested in droves, nailed to a cross, thrown to the beast, or burned alive as human torches that illuminated the night. However, Tacitus's narrative is questionable, and it seems that Nero's persecution of the Christians was bloated by early Christian historians, who considered the hated pagan emperor an easy target in the empire Constantine the Great and his heirs. Nevertheless, one thing is clear: St. Peter was a victim of Nero's persecution, and, on the spot where he was martyred, St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican was built centuries later. While probably unintended, the Great Fire of Rome was easily profited from by the Emperor Nero's countless enemies. His ambitious building binge on the ashes of the still smoldering city, including the fancy Domus Aurea, made it easier for Nero's rivals to erode his authority, eventually leading to Nero's suicide. After the bloody civil war, the new Flavian dynasty used the Great Fire of Rome to slander both Nero and his Julio-Claudian dynasty. Accounts by senators and historians such as Suetonius and Cassius Dio forever cemented the fate of the wretched emperor, branding him as a tyrant and torturer of Rome. Following the Christian takeover of the Roman Empire, Nero's persecution of Christians cast him as a symbol of the new religion's enemies. Let's not forget that the winners write history. Nero was an emperor, the most powerful man in Rome, yet he lost a struggle against the powerful and well-entrenched senatorial elite. Centuries later, the long-dead emperor also lost the battle against the Christians. His life was shaped as that of a tyrant, a murderer, a Christian persecutor, and the mastermind behind the Great Fire of Rome.